Hi guys, welcome back to AFTV. And straight out of Colney, I'm here with Turkish again.
I'm back again.
Well, you were so kind of composed last week and so
always.
Chill about everything Arteta said. We thought, let's get you back on.
That's one of my, strong points. Composure, calm, laid back,
No, but in all seriousness, he was winding us all up last week in the press conference. And we're here to do it all again. But in fairness, I've had a little look. I know this is going to be the first time you're hearing a lot of the stuff he said. I came out of this feeling a little bit more sorry for Arteta in terms of the circumstances last week with Brentford and some of the injury news, team news and the players being unwell, which we're going to go into. Obviously, transfers are happening. Yeah. It's been busy at Arsenal, yet in a weird way it feels like it hasn't been as busy as we want it to be, which sounds crazy. So we're going to touch on that. For all the Chelsea stuff, which he did talk about in the press conference as well, check out News Daily tonight, where Cecil will be going over it with Lewis as well, Chelsea fan. So they'll be touching on all the pre-match stuff there. And yeah, there was a few other bits and bobs. But before we go into it, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah? Are you starting to get excited for the game? Or
Nah. Far from excited for the game. Far from excited. Listen, don't get me wrong. Odergaard I like. Ramsdale not so much, but I'm willing to find out. But I'm still not excited yet because I still think there's still a few holes that we need to plug.
Okay, so on the Ramsdale thing, you're not being excited. I heard someone say, I think it was maybe Robbie saying it in the studio, I think he made a good point. I want to know if it kind of is what you're feeling too. He said a lot of Arsenal fans, it's not actually signing Aaron Ramsdale and bringing him in that's the problem. 23, young, lots of potential, he's played Premier League. It's not really that. And actually a lot of people in the game speak very highly of his potential. It's more the fee we're paying, having let Emi Martinez go a year before for less.
Yeah.
Is that where you are, or is it actually that you just don't want to be signing him?
It's pretty much there, but I've also got my doubts with Ramsdale in terms of what he can bring that Leno hasn't brought so far. I think under Emery and under Arteta, Leno's been a good shot stopper.
I think so, yeah.
But playing out the back has been a problem, And I feel like the next keeper should be, better
like
at playing out the back.
In that,
especially the next one to challenge Leno. And I feel like I haven't, heard or seen enough of Ramsdale doing that. He hasn't been in teams that progress out of the back much. He's been in, relegation threatened teams. Okay, at Bournemouth, it was a bit more playing out the back than Sheffield United. But I'm just worried that we're not going for the profile that fits what Arteta wants to do. But
for the money we're spending as well, right? Like if it was clearly a fee for a backup and then you think maybe next year we address it when Leno goes, that maybe makes more sense.
Look, 24 mil plus 6 mil is 30 mil. And I believe that same deal gets you Max Aarons. Right. And Max Aarons improves your first 11.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
For example, Areola went on loan to West Ham this summer. That's business that I probably would have leaned more towards because Max Aarons has an impact on your first 11, also homegrown. And Areola comes in with the experience to back up Leno, who will make a decision in the next 12 months, I assume. Yeah,
no, that's a good way of putting it. Interesting. I've been listening to a few Sheffield United fans. There's a guy on Arseblog, did a really interesting podcast there. There was a reporter, Sheffield United reporter on Football London as well. And what's really interesting, a lot of them were saying, Ramsdale was on great form second half of last season and they can completely see why Arsenal are buying him. Some are even saying that the mood amongst Sheffield United fans that we're getting him on the cheap, that actually he was one of their better assets and actually, we're kind of underpaying, which is interesting. But basically the kind of general feeling around those closest to Ramsdale, I know people who have known him, known his family, worked personally. Apparently he's a super lovely guy, great character. And I know people say, well, this stuff doesn't matter. I think it does for kind of the long term if you want to be part of the dressing room and the leadership, and all that going forward. Yeah.
It feels like we've bought us, we've focused on the supporting cast this summer. And
I get what you mean.
And, it could all make sense, let's say next summer, if you buy two big names and the two big names kind of, let's look at, Alisson and Van Dijk. Those two big names were added around or at the end of little business done here and there. Now, I'm not comparing the little business we're doing now to the business that Liverpool done because they managed to get Salahs and Manes out of it. And we look at Salah and Mane. Fine. But what I do see is, the focus seems to be on the supporting cast rather than, building on the first team and whoever's in the first team becomes the supporting cast.
Okay. Interesting.
So it'd be interesting to find out what we do in the next 12 months. January is going to be a big one now.
Do you think?
I think so. Because, like I said, it feels like the supporting cast has been brought in now. And it feels like, in Arteta's mind, he must now move on to the big names, and not necessarily the big names with the big prices, but the names that are going to make a real difference in this side now.
Yeah, interesting. Well, the thing with that is that Liverpool and Klopp were getting into the top four, or got into it, but you knew they were challenging. So it'll be interesting to see where we are. We're going to go into the first clip from the press conference. We talked about Aaron Ramsdale and Martin Odergaard, two players that, well, I get everything you're saying. I think, well, we know Martin Odegaard will. I think Ramsdale could be number one by the end of the season. I think he will be starting in goal. Let's see what Arteta had to say about those signings.
Well, a lot of things that he brought last season. He made us better. We needed more options, alternatives, creativity, and players that can be models in this football club. And he's still a really young man, but he has huge experiences in different clubs already, and he has a unique talent for the way we want to play. So I'm delighted that the club has made an effort, and we have now Martin in a permanent deal here.
And what's the latest on Aaron Ramsdell? Is he in contention to feature at the weekend?
We will see. There is still some paperwork getting done. He had his medical almost done as well, so there are a few things still with Sheffield to be resolved. So we're going to have to wait.
Okay, pretty much everything we thought he'd say and everything we knew. So before we go into that too much, we just discussed whether Ramsdale could be number one. Let's go into the second clip where he was actually asked about kind of Ramsdale's role in the squad this season. Let's see what he said.
Well, it's what we want. Is what we've always been the case at this football club. Is nothing new. We're gonna have two different profiles, two different stages in their career. Aaron is a really, really talented young goalkeeper with already a huge experience and international for England, and is going to bring competition, which is what we want: create competition, healthy competition, quality competition in every position, and we needed a goalkeeper there, and we identify Aaron as the ideal option.
Okay, interesting that. You were just looking up Leno, 29 years old.
No, because Arteta just said, a different profile, a different stage of their career. I just thought to myself, let me check that, because as much as, I get it age-wise, with goalkeepers, they tend to play into their mid to late 30s.
Right, yeah.
So I'm not too sure if that, that wording is to beat around the bush that is Leno going into the last 2 years of his contract. He's been rumoured to want away in the past and the end of last season. So maybe that is a reality that we're going to face in the next 12 months.
I think he might be protecting him. I think he might be saying, listen, the truth is that Leno probably wants to leave, but we're not going to... But look, maybe we're wrong. But I do think, someone like Aaron Ramsdale probably is happy to say, I'll fight it out for a year, and I know next year I'm going to be number one. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. And obviously we've got the cup tie coming up next week, so I imagine he's going to play in that, West Brom away, second round of the Carabao Cup. How could we forget? I think is it Cecil might be going or whatever?
Yeah, I think Cecil's going.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. He was asked what sort of is exciting about Aaron Ramsdale, and then he went on to talk about potential more signings coming in or going out, or what's left to do. Here's what he had to say on that.
I think they're going to love his personality, his character, the quality that he has as a goalkeeper and what he's going to offer. I think given some time, he's a young goalkeeper as well, but with a huge potential.
Have you finished spending yet, or is still more to come?
Well, there's still 11 days to go, and we still have things to do. They are going to be players at the moment. The way the club, the squad is set up, it's going to be difficult to find game time. So there are things to be done.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Let's touch on that Ramsdale thing. He said, he talked about character. He said the fans are going to love him. Yeah. And I think profile of personality coming in, when we've heard about some of the players who've left because supposedly the attitude's not been right, or commitment, or whatever it is, it sounds like that's something Arteta's put a lot of importance on. Yeah. And as I said, I know people who kind of know or have worked with Ramsdale before, who says he's a top guy. So look, we've got past all that. There's more business to be done, supposedly. Do you think he's talking more outgoings than incomings?
I think when he was asked the question, it was interesting because the journalist asked about spending more.
Right,
And he said there's 11 days to go, but he also leaned on the fact that we've got a lot of players that are not going to get game time. In fact, we've got one player that's still in Madrid and waiting to see.
He's just come back?
Oh, he just come back?
A couple of days ago, he posted a story with Londres, which I assume means London in Spanish.
Well, he's back, but he's one of the players there that we've kind of wondered about all summer. There's a few there, 3, 4, and even 5 players that, you know, it seemed like they would be available this summer. They're still on the book. So I think we've got to focus on outgoings as well, but I'm still looking at 1, maybe 2 more incoming, if possible.
I think we always do these transfer window ratings, and I think for me to get it up to like a 7, I think there needs to be 1 more, and then that 1 more depends on whether it's like an 8 or a 9. So what I mean is, like, I've seen very, very loose links to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I mean very loose. But let's say we've got a player like him in, or a Lautaro Martinez, or that kind of star striker, and Lacazette moved on. That, for me, our window goes from like a 5, 6, like an 8, 9, because I feel like we've added that creative midfield, we've added a top striker, we've added some depth in midfield. Lokonga can play. White's an upgrade on Louise. I'd say, cool, that's a very good window. If it's a case of we get in a kind of standard right back, like Kieran Trippier's a good player, but we're being linked with him with a swap.
31 with the price.
For his age, sort with Bellerin, I'd say, all right, it's a 7 because at least we've improved, but it's not. And I'd be looking at the rest of the team thinking it's better, but like not massively so. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I agree with you. I think it really depends on outgoings.
Yeah, like, look, Martinez, who you just touted there, that would be like the icing on the cake.
Right.
So far, it looks like we've done the supporting cast, and we've kind of, added to the bench, and we've added to, the fringes. But if you was to get a Martinez in there, that's a big name, big signing. Expect to hit the ground running. And then, you look at overall the summer, and then Martinez will be at the top instead of Ben White.
Right.
At the moment, whether you like Ben White or you don't know enough about him, or you do, at the moment, our summer window, at the top of that summer window, is Ben White at 50 million, and behind that is the Saliba controversy. So if we can add 1 more name, that's a 70, 80 million striker, or a centre midfielder, or a right back.
Right.
That would go a long way. And looking at the window, maybe above average. Right now, it's very much at a 5 for me. It's very much average because I don't really know what to expect. Right,
and that's the thing with a lot of these players, we don't know. Tavares could prove a great signing if it means we play a back 3 and he's our left wing back. I think there's a lot of, if Lokonga does displace Xhaka and becomes Partey's long-term partner, then he's suddenly he's suddenly a much better signing than perhaps we think it's a good signing. But let's say a super chat from Jason says, some big spending this season. What do you think minimum expectation Kroenke has for Arteta? Also, James, when you're doing FM Twitch streams, big up. We've been talking about this because you've dabbled in football manager. Come on. We'll do some football manager Twitch streams at some point. We are still working on all that, but we're going to have some good kind of Twitch exclusive content coming out, which would be good. Good question. I'll put it on to you. What do you think the minimum expectation for Kroenke is for Arteta?
Listen, this is an owner that doesn't have a clue. So I honestly think when you look at the outlay we've had this summer, we don't know if it's a Kroenke investment yet, or if it's the club's own money. That will come out in the future. So let's not lean towards Kroenke has supported. Right now, we don't know whether he's supported or whether he's yet again allowed the club to spend his own money. I think
sanctioned.
When you look at sanctioned. When you look at 130 mil. And you look at an owner who doesn't really have a clue, he doesn't know when we play. Sometimes he doesn't know what colours, we play in, and so on. I feel like he's seen Wenger get top 4 without ever spending that much amount of money. So he'd probably be expecting Arteta to get top 4 this. And for us fans, we know that is, it is wide of the mark. But I think for Kroenke, he's only looking at 130 million spent. The club has never spent this in a transfer window before. We've managed to get top 4 spending less. So Arteta, you need to get top 4 with 130 mil.
I think so. I think I echo everything you say about the owners not being as involved as we'd like, or nowhere near it. But I think for this amount of money to have been spent, I think there's a message from the top, which is we really believe in you. We're going to back you. But almost like in their mind, they're going, but that's it now. Like, this is the one big backing. You better get this right. If not, you're gone very quickly. And we'll get someone in who can make... Because the squad isn't where we want it to be in terms of being really confident for top 4. But at the same time, there's a lot of quality there. Like, I think you were talking about with Dan Potts. Pepe, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli and Smith Rowe as your 5... to fill 3 positions behind Lacazette or Aubameyang, who aren't 33, 34. They're still 30 and 31. They're only a year off their prime or whatever. That should be enough to challenge, right?
You'd expect better,
Right. Granit Xhaka, we know he needs to upgrade, but we also know he's not a terrible footballer. Thomas Partey is a world-class central midfielder. He was when we bought him.
He's a top 4 midfielder, definitely.
There's got to be something there to at least make you feel Arsenal are going to compete.
Yeah.
So I think if we don't, all eyes on Arteta, and very quickly so.
Yeah, that is the reality. For me, it's the frustration, because as much as you're right, it feels like they have allowed him to spend, or they've given him the money. In essence, he's been backed. If you look at the amount he's spent since he first come in, it's north of 200 mil. So the attention is very, very well and truly on Arteta and Edu, because money's been spent. And my worry is that Kroenke has given the funds to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Because some of the business we've done, and probably the majority of the business we've done with Edu in his position and with Arteta in his position, I'm not as excited as I should be for spending 200 mil plus, and that makes me worry. But at the same time, we can only wait and see.
I echo that. I do echo that. We've got a super chat from Boss, says Joachim Mailer from Atalanta. I assume you mean Atalanta, unless he's playing for Atlanta in the MLS. Or Vanderson for Gremio are better options for right back. From my opinion, they're better than Max Aaron's (brackets no English tax). Or as we said, we'll conclude the transfer stuff there, because it is going to be interesting to see on that right back thing. Connor with the super chat says, "Do we need a right back when we have Maitland-Niles?" I mean, I know you think we do anyway, but others maybe.
We've had Maitland-Niles for 4 years.
Yeah, we have. We've had him a long time.
Just because he's gone on loan for 6 months and come back doesn't mean it's that old, Wenger. It's like a new signing.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, it's not like a new signing. It's like someone we can't get rid of.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's move into the next clip. The Brentford stuff, what came out of it wasn't just the result of the performance. It was Lacazette and Aubameyang missing. We all on this channel, and not just us, by the way, everyone on social media, on their channels, wherever, speculated about why that be. We heard some loose reports that players were looking to go. We had Sky telling us that Barcelona wanted Aubameyang. A lot of things fueled this fire, and I think a big part of it was Arteta and Arsenal not being able to explain to us what was actually going on. Now, in fairness, some of that might have been explained in the press conference today. Let's just touch on what happened before Brentford first. Here's a clip.
Putting things into perspective, we have an incredible 48 hours before the match, which created a big uncertainty and probably an unprecedented Arsenal lineup. We tried everything that we had in that game, and it didn't work out. We knew the consequences of that externally, what it went to men, but internally the reaction has been incredibly positive. It's one day of Premier League football. We have the whole season ahead of us, and any negativity that's going to try to surround the football club is going to be out of these walls.
Yeah, interesting that. Let's touch on that in a sec, because there is some team news from Arsenal which came out yesterday. This is what he had to say about it as well.
It's still very uncertain. I cannot give you any answer today because I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to train in a few hours, if they're going to be able to compete at the weekend. I don't know.
Okay, that was interesting. I think the feeling is that Aubameyang could potentially be available.
Yeah.
But this is really... Arsenal were poor against Brentford, let's have it right. The team that went out should have been good enough to beat Brentford. Yeah. Or be... Actually, let me say that back, because I think Brentford are a good side. But should have been far more competitive than it was.
Bare minimum, yeah.
Sounds like there was a complete kind of nightmare in the build-up where people were unwell, tests were being done, no one knew what was going on, we couldn't be told. And as you rightly explained to me just before, the players were unwell, but they weren't sure if it was COVID-19. Yeah. What a mess. And I've got to say, we've done our fair share of criticism of the players and the manager in that game. So anyone who's sitting here going, there's no excuse. We know there's no excuse. We've touched on that for the last week.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how unfortunate this actually was, in fairness, going into the opening game of the season.
Listen, I say four first team as well. One of them's Ronison, one of them's Willie, and them two would have been on the bench.
Yeah.
Oba and Laka, does Oba and Laka play and change the circumstance of the game? Probably not, in my honest opinion. But I also feel like if it was another club, I feel like if it was a club with more clout or more strength right now, in terms of a Man City or a Liverpool, if they was missing two first teamers and two off the bench, I think something would have been done about it. but it goes a long way in showing that, you know, Sky and BT and the TV, you know, deals run the league, because that's why it went ahead. In all honesty, Friday night opening game of the season, full stadium back in action, regardless of, you know, the COVID issue with Oba and Laka and whatnot. I feel like the TV deals are the winner.
And actually, let me pause you there, because Arteta was asked whether he was surprised the game wasn't postponed, and this is what he had to say about that as well.
Well, they had some tough days, to be fair. Laka still hasn't trained, so he's not been really good. Oba had a training session yesterday, but yeah, they were affected by the virus, and Alex something similar as well. So yeah, they were ill.
There's a suggestion that it came from a party that Oba had on the Tuesday before the game against Brentford for his son. So it was a sort of a family and friends gathering. Can you confirm that that's where potentially it came from? And is it disappointing that they had that environment before such a big Premier League game?
I don't know where it came from. We can guess. It came from a week before. We had cases that they had 3, 4, 5 positive and negative tests, and then they are positive. We have no clue where it came from, to be fair.
Right, so my bad, guys. We're going to touch on whether he was surprised about the game not being postponed in a second. But just before he did say that, which was that essentially, obviously the journal was checking that the players' health, they're all okay, but also asking him kind of where it came from, which I thought was a straight. No one, you know. I don't know where you guys are watching around the world, but here in the UK, or in England anyway, the restrictions have been lifted. There's no, very, very few restrictions in what you can and can't do because of the pandemic. So everyone's kind of within their right, outside of training, whatever, to do what they want, as far as I'm aware. And he was asked whether a potential party led to it, you know, and Arteta rightly said, no, we can't know where it's coming from. Strange question, but I guess...
They want They want another, you know, headline to beat the club with. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, Oba parties with son, invites friends, COVID outbreak. What are you going to do about it, Arteta?
Right. Yeah.
That's what they're after. You know, journalists are after them sorts of headlines, and at the end of the day, it doesn't help. But at the same time, it's because of the situation we're in overall, not just COVID, and not, you know, just being unprepared in general, having fallen off over the past 10 years, the fans being the way they are now because of the way we've been treated over 10 years. Journalists are this way because of the way we've been treated and the way we've been run.
Right.
It's clickbait to the world for the Arsenal fans. You know, anyone that wants to have followers on Twitter or wants something clicked, link it to Arsenal, and you're going to...
It was interesting because I'd not even heard that. I'd not even read it anywhere, heard a rumour. So, you know, as far as I'm aware. And by the way, like, big up Aubameyang here for a second, because there was a lot of speculation. And I apologise as well for my part in it, you know, wondering whether more was going on. But I will also caveat with that by saying, when you look at Guendouzi and Ozil's kind of how long they were absent for the team, and we never really knew the real reason why. When you've seen the way the club has dealt with things in the past, of course we're going to speculate. Yeah. So I'm not going to be too hard on myself or the Arsenal fans for it. But I just want to say on Aubameyang, he's had a really tough year. And I'm not talking about performances. I'm talking about malaria, the situation with his family. It's been difficult for him. And I think the last thing he needed when being unwell was more speculation about whether he's trying to leave the club. And, you know, people were digging up his quote where he said, "my manager" on Instagram, and using that against him. I don't think that was fair. I actually, in fact, I want to... No, I'm not going to apologise, but I was more critical of Arteta, saying, look, has he fallen out with more players again?
That's what we all thought, I think, because the lack of transparency, you know, in general at this club, leads us to form our own opinions and speculate. Because and yes, this lack of transparency around the COVID seems to come down to powers above Arteta. I get that. But it's the fact that we are always, you know, left last in terms of information fed and whatnot as Arsenal fans. So that's why we have... all we can do is speculate on news and rumours and whatnot.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now let's go on to the clip I tried to introduce before, but I messed up. The game wasn't postponed despite this COVID situation. Here's what Arteta had to say about that.
Yes, I was surprised, but the regulations or the regulators decided that the best thing to do was to play the game.
Did you ask for it to be postponed? And was Lacazette and Aubameyang in your starting 11 last week?
What we did is what we had to do through the club doctor as well, explain the situation, how it developed, and the risk that we could see there.
Now, I think what's really interesting about that was, obviously, he said he's surprised.
Yeah.
He talked about regulations and sort of ultimately there's protocol we have to follow. I'm going to move on to another thing where he was basically asked why it took us so long to find out what was going on, as you were touching on there.
Have you seen the COVID rule before we move on to that?
No, go on.
That if you've got 14 players fit to play, that you play the game. 14. So 11 and 3 subs.
I think where this gets difficult, and I'm very aware that COVID has caused a global pandemic, and I'm not here to tell the world how we should be dealing with that. Obviously, I'm here to talk about Arsenal. Yeah. But with vaccinations, with the restrictions being lifted, with COVID-19 obviously being an illness, but one that people are obviously they have their protocol on how to deal with it. It's interesting that at what point does it become something where you say, okay, he's got it, so carry on, and at what point is it also still this is very serious, we need to postpone the game, or we need to do more than just deal with it like it's a hamstring injury or something else.
There's a lack of clarity all around. Forget football for a second.
You take this away from football, with
the illness, COVID, the jabs, all of this stuff. There's a lot of there's a lot of depth to it that we don't really understand yet.
Right, yeah, I think so.
So when it relates to football, for example, all fans need to be double jabbed by October, but none of the players need to be double jabbed throughout the season. And okay, but why? Explain why. It doesn't really make sense as to what is going on. Yeah. And this is just another example.
I think so too. He was asked why it took so long to find out. Here's what he had to say.
Listen, Ian, I am always very direct and I try to give the information is right. But there are some policies and there are some medical privacies that I cannot forget. I have to protect the club and I have to protect the individuals. So if you ask me why I did it, that's the only reason. For me, it was simple. They have COVID. My best player, they have COVID. I cannot play. I have to put a team out there that is unprecedented in this league and take all the pressure off. For me, it was very simple. But I cannot do that. So the club will be always in front of me. And the individuals, if that's what they believe and we cannot give the right answer at the moment for different reasons, that's what I would keep doing, and I will do that again next time.
Do you think that should change? Because if, for example, Aubameyang had a hamstring injury and was out this weekend, and we said, Aubameyang's doubtful with a hamstring injury, we'd all know. And there's nothing wrong with having COVID. I don't understand why.
Yeah, if you know that you have a hamstring injury, you can say with obviously permission from the player that you have a hamstring injury. When you don't know, or you are not sure, or it can be something else, maybe worse, then you have to be really careful with what you say. Yeah.
Have to be very careful what you say.
Well, they must have known by Saturday, Sunday, and this is my thing with that.
Was it Friday today? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not stupid. By Monday latest, you would have known if they've got COVID, and you could have just done the update then instead of leaving it till Thursday. A day before the weekend of next fixtures, and that's my thing. I get Arteta, and I understand. And even before the video, I said on the Friday, I believe they was ill, but not positive for COVID. They haven't been tested, so they must have got tested on the Saturday or Sunday. It would have been released. We can find out in a couple hours whether we've got it or not. Let alone footballers, probably a couple of minutes. Right. So, address it early.
Yes, I think something should have come out from a club in terms of a statement or the Premier League or something. I understand this the first time Arteta's speaking to the media since the game. So I'm not looking at Arteta here. I actually feel a bit sorry for him. I genuinely believe he followed protocol. And when he said they're unwell, that's all I can say. And there was obviously, you read that and you kind of feel a sense of like injustice or frustration. And the natural thing to think is, that's all he'll say. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's a transfer thing, or maybe there's tension or whatever. It sounds to me like he was just so frustrated that it went the way it did, and that he wasn't able to address people in the way.
I think he was frustrated, definitely. Yeah, I think he was. How can you not be in that situation?
Right, we can all understand
when
that.
You're surprised the game's gone ahead. You got a picture. That person who's saying they're surprised the game's gone ahead, put them in the actual day before the match is about to start. When he found out the news, surely that was a lot more anger and frustration involved that he had to continue with it. So it doesn't go on Arteta, this.
No, I think this is one we can definitely
put more to the league and the governments in charge of the COVID protocols and us understanding it.
Right, and for everything that's been said about Arteta this week, and by the way, like, you know, when he's not suddenly rid of criticism, you know, the Brentford game had many more problems, but I can say I feel sorry for him, and I'm glad this is somewhat being cleared up because it was getting a little messy, and we didn't need this going into the start of the season. So at the moment, it's like Aubameyang and Lacazette staying. So let's see.
That's why all them rumours.
Yeah, all them rumours. Yeah, done. Could be transfer window could be done, couldn't it? Our business could be over.
That's it.
Yeah. Look, let's go into a couple more things he said. Obviously, it has been a tough start. He was asked whether this has been his biggest challenge since joining, which I thought was a funny question because, for everything we've said and all the problems of the club, it is one game.
Yeah.
So I think to say biggest challenge, I don't think it's bigger than when he lost 5 out of 7 or whatever it was and went on that horrendous run last season.
I actually put it on equal ground with November, December right now.
Really?
Not because of the one game, but because of the one game and the transfer window. So moving into Chelsea and City now, James, doesn't it feel like moving into December last year, where you kind of have a feeling what's going to happen?
Doesn't feel as bad to me.
It does to me.
Really?
Because it's the start of the season.
Maybe
you know, the start of the season is when you want to have a bit of belief. But if you go into the first 3 games and into international break without a win, how's the belief go for the season from there? That'd
be pretty appalling. I can't lie. Fair enough. All right, let's go into his next clip. Is this his biggest challenge since joining Arsenal?
No, I think I have bigger challenges since I've been in here for 18 months, believe me. And a lot of things that happened, we will look at them with perspectives in maybe not now, because a lot of people are not interested to analyze what is happening now. But in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years time, when we look back, we will say a lot of sense is what happened.
I like the way he laughed. He just went, I've had bigger challenges.
Yeah.
I imagine he's not even talking on the pitch. I imagine he's talking about some of the stuff he's had to deal with off the pitch in terms of staff, in terms of the mole. Who can forget the mole? I remember doing the press at the time. This show's called the Arteta Presser Reaction, and I was live from my bedroom, my little light. And how far we've come on, look at this. But it made me laugh that someone asked him, did you ever find out who the mole was and did you deal with him? And he went, I did. I found that quite amusing. I think he's alluding to off-field issues that have been tough.
Must be because it's the off-field issues that cause what's happening on-field.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think Arsenal, one of those clubs where the off-field was. I think a lot of clubs, let's say Chelsea, can have off-field issues and then still go on the pitch and do the job. They had winners, they had world-class players and whatever, whereas I think kind of what happens off-field and on-field is very intertwined with Arsenal at the moment. I think there's a lot of kind of a domino effect. You know, if something goes wrong off the pitch, you find it's effect. Maybe because we've got a young squad. Well, we didn't for a long time, but now it feels we've got a very young squad. Maybe we've got a squad that maybe players sometimes lack the mentality at times. So,
100%. Mentality is always in question.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to drop that in there.
You know that word.
We're going to set him off. Let's go into the very last clip. He did have a message for the fans. Obviously, Arsenal are back. The first game at the Emirates of the season. Obviously, we were back for that Chelsea game, funnily enough, Chelsea as well, for the Mine series. But this could be a packed house. The Emirates will be full. Bukayo Saka is going to be welcomed by the fans for the first time since the Euros. A couple new signings. I don't know if Odergaard and Ramsdale, I don't think they'll be a part of the squad. I think everyone's kind of agreeing it's probably too late to sign them up. Will Aubameyang be back? A lot to sort of answer. And also, how will the fans be feeling going to it? I mean, I know, you're not going, are you? You're not going to the game? You'll be here doing AFTV stuff?
Odegaard, Ramsdale doesn't change my mind right now.
No? Fair enough.
And that's me liking Odegaard and open to see what Ramsdale's about, but it still doesn't change the fortunes of the club.
Please bring in more players, man. Right, here's what Arteta had to say.
Just what I described, that in moments when there are people and there are certain negativity around the place, you need your fans and your supporters more than ever. They've always been with the team, and I have no doubt that on Sunday they're going to be right behind the team. And there is one thing that the team needs is exactly that. So if they really want to help the team, it's not going to be a better medicine for them that feel them very close with the right energy and supporting and being behind them. And the team is going to try their best.
I have no doubt that the players are going to try their best. I know Brentford didn't look like it was, but I think that was more like how do I put it? I don't think Kieran Tierney doesn't try his best. I don't think Marion, White. I don't look at players and think you don't want to be here. It's not like what other players, even last year, that I was thinking you don't want to be here. You're bored, whatever. The players will try their best. Is it not somewhat? I hear what you're saying about the fans. Support them, get behind them. Like you're kind of saying let's make the Emirates like a cauldron and make it difficult for Chelsea. But isn't it partly on the players and the club to bring that out of us as well? Yeah, we're supporters, we are fans, so we're there to support the team.
Yeah.
But we need to be given a reason to feel like.
And Arteta said this himself. When Arteta first come in, the first thing he said is, the priority for me is to connect the fans back to the club. He said that's the first thing that needs to happen, because the club is nothing without the fans. And this is part of the reason why, I liked what he said early on, and a lot of people liked what he was saying early on, a cultural overhaul. Yeah. A lot of those things there. Now, fast forward 18 months, he's saying, it's the best medicine, and it's the best motivating factor. But
sounds
Arteta,
desperate, doesn't it? Yeah, please support us.
Let's be honest. You just lost to Brentford in the opening game. We've got Chelsea and City next. It's a transfer window where we haven't attacked the areas we thought we would attack. So have that same honesty you had at the beginning, where you said, the fans feel disconnected with the club, and I can understand why. Well, you've made Xhaka the captain in the first game back of the season. Yeah. So those sort of things are going to add to the disconnection. And it's going against what you said 18 months ago when you first came in. Yeah. So it's all good and well to ask us to support, but before the Europa League semi-final, a planned protest turned into a clap for the bus. That clap for the bus didn't bring us into the final. So as much as positivity and medicine and all of this stuff he talks about, listen, our biggest game of last season, a protest turned into a clapathon. Yeah? And nothing changed. In fact, we went into the game and we didn't even score a goal. So, all of this false kind of, narrative that positivity will change something, it won't. Fans did try and do that in the Europa League semi-final amidst the worst season we've had in a long fucking time, and that didn't help. It didn't show anything. It didn't change performance level. It didn't change heart, passion, desire. You can't change quality. A 12th man can't do that, but a 12th man can kind of get behind. But when we mention mentality and character, and you don't have the right mentality and character, you're getting behind people that don't have the mentality and character to use this as a catalyst to provide more, to push more, to play better and all of that. So I think it's just words again from Arteta to try and go into this game with a positive atmosphere in the Emirates and whatnot. And I think it would be. As much as there's a planned protest, there's a lot of fans that are dismissing it and saying that, it's the first game back, it's all about that. Full stadium, Emirates, let's get it rocking. Cool. So he's going to have support. But at the same time, there's also going to be a lot of people that are aggrieved with what's happened, not happy with how we're going into the season, and not happy with some of the lies he's told us. Yeah, no, fair enough. I hear you. I think this was him trying to rally the troops to a degree, and knowing that it has been very negative around the club. Couple signings in since the Brentford game, and now it's a case of, come on guys, let's get behind it, let's make it difficult for Chelsea, which I believe we can. Look, we're going to wrap up the show there. We do have a super chat from Mark, which we'll just take for the end. He says, big up both of you. Thank you very much, Mark. With the players we've brought in, I'm happy. 129 million is a good sign too. However, Arteta tactics still worry me a lot. Thoughts? I think that's kind of where I am. Am I happy with the players we've brought in? I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm not like super excited. I'm not disappointed. I don't think there's a bad signing in there. Can I just ask you a question to wrap up? Go on. If you had 130 million to spend, out of the names we brought in, who would you have brought in? Because I've done this yesterday on my channel, and I said Odergaard and Lokonga would be the only ones I would have brought in, and then maybe a Tavares on top of that, because that was a good value deal. So them three. Odergaard, Tavares, Lokonga, those three for sure. White, maybe not for that money. Would you have kept Saliba and saved that 50 mil for another area just to see what Saliba's about, like we're just seeing what White's about? Probably, yeah. Because you've still got Rob Holding, and I know the guy, is far from flawless, but he for his mediocre performances last season, in my opinion, the problem still wasn't the defence, right? Yeah. So maybe you could get by on another year of holding Saliba, I don't know. Or Saliba, Gabriel, let's not forget that. You could put Gabriel Mari, as you've been saying for a while. So yes, I hear that. I just wanted to get your drift. Yeah, no, and then Ramsdale, maybe for less. Again, I think White and Ramsdale will, for the money we've spent, I think will actually still prove to be very good signings. I think people will go, I see why. I'm confident with White. I'm definitely confident Odegaard, will be good value, and that's all I'm confident of. I see good things in Lokonga and Tavares. Ramsdale, I'm yet to find out. That's how I feel about overall the business so far.
Fair enough. Well, there's still time to do some
11
more.
days, Arteta
very quickly,
said.
do you think we'll get another player in?
Yes. Because we're going to, let me not say it, but we're going to go to Chelsea. We're not going to get what we want. And then the next week before the transfer window ends, it's going to be more rumours, more, outgoings.
Stress, yeah.
Then we
fans
play Man
demanding.
City Saturday lunchtime. With that game gone, there's still 3 days left of the window, I believe. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Well, 2 or 3 days left of the window after the City game. I think for the fans' sake and for atmosphere's sake, I think he's going to need to, and we're going to need to buy one more player at least. But I want to see 4 out.
Fair enough. Those 4?
There's a pick of 7 you could take, but look, it's not going to be Xhaka no more.
Maitland-Niles, Reece Nelson on a loan, maybe.
Eddie Nketiah, Lacazette, Bellerin.
Oh my God, but Lacazette and Bellerin.
We got 4 right backs. You can put that down to 2. We've got 3 left backs. Kolasinac is another name. Maybe 5, 6 need to go. But I'm going to try to be fair and say 4.
It's gonna
11
be
days,
it's
4 man out, 1 man in.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Turkish, for joining me.
No
this has
worries,
been fun.
Always.
Hope you enjoyed it. New set and all, new look. Don't forget to check out Straight Outta Colney next week as well, where Arteta will be chatting head of Man City, and God knows what would have happened in the last week that he'll need to chat about as well. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't rated the channel, check out all our other content. There's loads coming out today and tomorrow in the build up to the big Chelsea game. Please win, Arsenal. Please, Arteta, get it right. Let's see where we are. Thanks for joining, and catch you on the next one.
Love.